Our next speaker is Paula Knight, and actually Kate and Paula and I met together several years ago. We were sitting on a leadership panel, and that was how we got connected. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Paula Knight. She's the Vice President of People Strategy and Communications, and she provides leadership and strategic direction for Cancer Care Ontario. Under her leadership, Cancer Care Ontario is committed to building a culture that inspires people to work together to create a world-class health system that meets the health needs of Ontarians now and into the future. Paul has also been awarded awards through the Microsoft Corporation, and she received the Chairman's Award presented by Bill Gates. She was recognized as one of Canada's top 100 most powerful women, and she's also a recipient of the Queen Elizabeth Golden Jubilee Medal for outstanding contribution to the community in Canada. Welcome, Paula.
I probably need help with these boots that I've got on and the heels. I consider myself a goddess after my whole challenge. I don't use survivor or thriver, I just simply use goddess. So anyway. So I must confess that Kate gave me Dawn's book a month ago, and I only finished it yesterday. It took me what seemed like forever, not because I didn't enjoy it, or because it was too long, or that I didn't find it helpful. It took me forever because everything for me is still quite raw. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2014, and I finished treatment in 2015. And it was a long journey. So a lot of the words that I read took me quite a long time to get through. I found it incredibly emotional. So if any of you were on the GO train, 7:30 Lakeshore West, you would have seen a weeping woman, and that would have been me, because I'm a crier. So that was, you would have watched that for the last few months. When I was at my lowest point with chemotherapy, a friend sent me the following quote. It reads, "Something very beautiful happens to people when their world has fallen apart. A humility, a nobility, a higher intelligence emerges just at the point when our knees hit the floor." The theme of today's launch, Finding Beauty Through the Wreckage, and the incredible gift that Don has given us through this account of his experiences caring for Kate, brings this quote for me completely to life. And as I was reading it, I kept thinking, oh, I so wish that this had been available to my spouse and to so many of those who cared for me as a tool to support them. Some of that emotion, though, made me smile, as it served to remind me of all the amazing people who, by the way, have been elevated in my space to my angel circle, because I also have one of those. And it brightened my day because it showed me and reminded me of the love that I had received, how people kicked my butt, and how people just simply helped get me through. Don's chapter, that's called What About the Children, if you've read his book, made me smile a lot. Which may seem odd, given how tough the task of telling your children you have cancer is. I had solicited guidance through my colleagues at Cancer Care Ontario to be able to tell my kids. I read anything that Google would spit out on the subject, and I rehearsed over and over again, Mum is sick, Mum has cancer, thousands of times in the mirror, all with the goal of setting the right tone, having the right expression, and most importantly, trying not to cry. This was all for my oldest son, Owen, who was 10 at the time, and I needed a whole different approach for my other son, Bryn, who was 7 and who has autism. Finally, I plucked up the courage one day, and as guided and as read and as practiced, I delivered the message to Owen that I had cancer, and then went on to explain that I knew how scary this news can be, but I was in great care and lots of people were working very, very hard to make me better. It was devastating. Incredibly, something really, and this is where I cry, so bear with me, something really beautiful happened in that moment. Owen looked at me and he said, "Yeah, Mom," he said, "yeah, that word cancer is really scary. Do you think we can call it something else?" And I said, "Sure, like what?" And Owen said, I think it needs a human name. How about Frank? So I quickly did a mental check of whether there were any close relatives named Frank or close friends in my family, because I need to have a quick response. And I said, I'm pretty sure there wasn't. I said, okay, Frank it is. What evolved from that, and I think what Don captured so beautifully with his story about his own children, was our ability to talk about cancer, or Frank, as we called it, with lightness. Even on the darkest days, when Owen would ask me, Mum, how's Frank? We would giggle. We decided I wasn't going to fight Frank, I was going to dance with Frank, because that might throw Frank off his game, and he'd simply decide to leave my body. I'm blessed to have an amazing circle of friends, and I know everybody who's spoken so far has mentioned that, even the ones that are far away in Wales. And as a reference by Don, in the simplest thing, like text, FaceTime. In fact, my mother learned how to use FaceTime when I was sick. It brought us closer and became a constant source of what I like to call love kryptonite. It sustained me, bolstered me, and literally brought me off my knees. Strangers gave me gifts that they will likely never know were gifts to me. Like the woman at the dollar store who told me I looked beautiful on the day that my last eyelash had fallen out, and she didn't know how devastated I had been that morning. Or the time I was waiting for my MRI and the elderly lady in the waiting room told me that as hard as my diagnosis was, that I had a responsibility to give this my all so that I could show women who came after me what is possible. Or my bald colleague who traveled with me on the train every day so that people would stare at both of us and both our bald heads instead of just mine. You see, caring comes in many forms, and what jumped out at me most in reading Don's book is that we all learn something very important from caring. It is a higher intelligence that not only those that are going through cancer, but for those who care for us as well. I'll close by telling you I'm still trying to figure out what to do with my higher intelligence, but I feel drawn to the need to support those who take care of us and how to aid those who continue to heal after they've danced with Frank. As someone who is privileged, and I know that was the opening for me in terms of my work with Cancer Care Ontario, and I am privileged and very blessed to work with over 1,200 people who care deeply about helping people and their families as they experience cancer. But we also understand that there is much to be done. Riding shotgun provides a unique picture that hasn't been captured, in my view, like this before, and it will make a difference. Yesterday, I spent a few hours with a member of my own team at CCO who's actually going through cancer. She's actually going through ovarian cancer right now while she was having chemotherapy at Princess Margaret. Her mother and her husband were there. And while we were in the room and she was having chemo, the nurse came in and said, "Do you mind leaving for a little bit because I need to change her dressing from surgery?" And of course, we laughed and we went to the waiting room. And it's interesting because rather than sit there and ask them about how they were feeling about their daughter or their wife and how she was doing, I actually sat there and asked them how they were doing and what I could do to help them. And that's a direct result of what I read in Don's book, because even as a patient, you forget to do that. They were quiet in the typical caregiver fashion, and they said, "We're fine, we don't need anything." Yet I knew they were exhausted, scared, and trying to make sense of their new normal. My hope is that Don's words give all of us, like the family I spent time with yesterday, the voice that they so deserve, and because of this, that they find the beauty that they have through the wreckage. Thank you.